52-year-old James Harris, at the time these occurrences transpired, was married to his beloved partner, had two well-bred adult children, and held a rewarding occupation that he cherished. Life was thriving for him until it wasn't any longer. The sequence of events commenced on a Tuesday evening. Although I stayed late at work, it wasn't so late that my wife felt anxious, and I arrived home post-rush hour traffic. It was an ordinary Tuesday night. We had made arrangements for me to collect some Chinese cuisine en route, which I did. Upon parking in the garage, I activated the remote to lower the door, grabbed my work bag and groceries, and ventured indoors. In contemporary America, I felt like a mighty hunter returning to his den to feed his waiting companion. Immediately upon entering, I observed that my wife's car was not in its customary spot. Yet, I assumed she had embarked on a sudden errand and expected her return soon. I placed the meal on the kitchen table, intending to keep it warm and anticipating heating it in the microwave if she stayed past her usual time. Making my way towards the front door along the hallway, I turned at the stairs, heading instead to our bedroom to swap into more relaxed attire. This was my standard practice upon returning home: relax, unwind, and dine. 10 minutes later, I began descending the stairs and called out, "Marie, are you here?" No response. I pondered, where could she be? Perhaps she wrote a note. I wasn't too concerned, but by now I was curious. Entering the living room, I discovered a note on the coffee table. The message wasn't what I anticipated. It was something far from my expectations. It read, "Dear Jim, I apologize for putting you in this situation, but there's someone who requires my attention. I received a call today, one of those calls you simply can't ignore when they come. I'm sorry for leaving without saying goodbye, and I understand how difficult this will be for you. Know that my affection for you surpasses life itself, and I shall return as soon as possible. The existence we built together is precious to me, and I long to rejoin it when the time comes. Rest assured, I am well. Sincerely, your devoted wife, Marie." On the coffee table beside her letter lay her cell phone. I was taken aback and bewildered, pondering over the mysterious message in her enigmatic note. Could it be that someone needed her? Who is this person of such significance yet unworthy of my knowledge? Then fear crept in. Where has she gone? What could require her immediate departure without giving me any clue as to her location? How could this matter demand such urgency that she would keep the details from me? This was not the type of message a wife sends her husband before an expected late return. Fear transformed into apprehension, and then fury. How on earth could she do this? She simply vanished without providing any coherent reason or destination for her departure. Doubts shadowed my mind, replacing one question with another. Initially, I pondered over how she could overlook her cell phone. Soon enough, this gave rise to a deeper query. Why would she abandon her cell phone? Reading her note a second time offered no new insights compared to the first. "A person requires my aid," it read. Today, I received a call, one that demands immediate response. Who is this person presuming they can disregard me so flippantly? She isn't an undercover agent, a covert operative, or a brain surgeon for global leaders. For the life of me, I couldn't locate my wife. In truth, my anger was just a veil for my apprehensions about her safety. I sensed she needed assistance, and in my mind, I was determined to reach her. But I didn't know where to find her. I yearned to hear her voice and confirm she was safe, yet I lacked the means to contact her. As dinner grew cold and darkness fell, I finally decided to make calls, contacted her sister, friends, and ultimately our children. Nobody provided information or hinted at anything, causing distress among our offspring as well. Despite my attempts to alleviate their concerns, my ineptitude made the situation worse. Withdrawing from contact, I vowed to keep them apprised. Angrier than ever, I accused her of endangering our children, although I too had contributed to the predicament. Rereading the note, I found solace in its sentiment expressing affection for the life we built together. Yet this did not seem like a promise of return within a short span. Instead, it filled me with dread. Although I convinced myself I was overreacting, I dialed the hospital. She wasn't there. Next, I contacted the police, but they declined to file a missing person report, unless a child was involved or if 48 hours had elapsed. Considering lying about her age, I pondered how I could present her as a youngster when she was indeed of advanced years. Grateful for their understanding, I disconnected. Eventually, I felt like eating something, but I wasn't feeling peckish, so I stored the food I had purchased in the refrigerator and sat in the dimly lit living room, hoping she would return. She didn't show up. Around 2 in the morning, I climbed upstairs and drifted off to sleep. Upon waking up the next day, I found her side of the bed cold and empty, triggering a wave of emotions. I was unsure about what to do next. I informed work that I wouldn't be coming in, which seemed to worry them. Soon, my phone began ringing with coworkers asking if I was all right, what I needed, and what they should do regarding the files. Interestingly, helping them out for a while provided a sense of relief and momentarily diverted my attention from my concerns. I contacted her office, but they informed me she had called in sick for the day. Initially, I suspected they were concealing information from me, but over time my doubts turned into belief that we were equally clueless. I visited their workplace on several occasions, hoping a direct conversation would clear things up, yet they knew no more than I did. This left me with minimal knowledge. She vanished sometime on Tuesday, but I only realized she was missing late in the evening. The police required 48 hours to investigate, so I filed a missing persons report at the station on Friday morning. I presented them her note, and they inquired if such behavior was typical for her. Despite my agitation, verbally abusing officers is not advisable. However, I found myself in an unfavorable mood. They warned me of potential charges for my erratic behavior. To avoid escalation, I reluctantly sat down until they deemed me a viable suspect and filled out the necessary paperwork. Upon completion, they implied that in similar cases, it's often the wife who flees with her lover. In the coming days, you may discover if divorce papers are served to you. Never before in my life have I felt such a strong urge to strike a police officer. Instead, I merely muttered a terse thanks and departed. The phrase, protect and serve, lost all meaning then. Upon reaching home, I crumpled into my chair, riddled with stress. With no tasks at hand, I started contacting friends and family once more, but this time was more careful not to disturb the kids. Instead, they contacted me, leaving me to inform them that I am still clueless about anything, yet I believe Mom is safe. She's resourceful, competent, and I'm confident she's managing things just fine. Essentially, I lied to my children. A father ought never to deceive his offspring, but I had nothing reassuring or alarming to share with them except that their mother was still absent. How does one engage in such a distressing discussion with children who are legitimately worried about their mother? Calls made to friends and family on Tuesday evening instigated a barrage of calls back to me by Wednesday. Initially, these started subtly with inquiries like merely checking up, but by Thursday they grew increasingly anxious. All were querying about my efforts to locate Marie, and by Friday some had adopted an undeniable hostility. No one was voicing it yet, but worry was turning into accusations. If Friday's calls were difficult, Saturday's visits proved unbearable. I was inundated with visitors, friends, and family dropping by to check on my well-being. Their initial words were supportive, but questions didn't take long to come up. Had there been any issues between us? Were you quarreling? Was she dissatisfied? It escalated to the point where her mother questioned me, "Are you absolutely certain you don't know where she is?" I lost my temper and shouted at my mother-in-law for the first time since we became acquainted. "What on earth are you implying, Margaret? Are you implying I'm involved in something? Frankly, I find it hard to believe I would fabricate such a thing. No, Margaret, not at all. It's merely—" She paused. "Spew it out, Margaret." "What now?" She looked me straight in the eye and, with an expression of rage that I won't forget any time soon, declared, "It's just that she has never behaved like this before." I suppressed my rage and pain, hoping it wouldn't show. In a composed manner, I retorted, "Don't you think I already know that?" By then, she was visibly trembling. Her spouse interjected, "Jim, we understand you're trying your best. Could you share whatever information you have, and perhaps we can find a resolution?" I agreed. We remained silent for a while. Then I disclosed everything I knew, or more accurately, what I didn't know. I showed them the note, and they seemed both puzzled and worried. The indirect accusations dissipated, and for an hour we cried together, trying to find some clue, any hint at all, regarding Marie's sudden vanishing. Henry and Margaret stayed until midday as I prepared a simple meal for us three, though it seemed my friends had other matters on their minds. A continuous flow of visitors arrived at our door, some bearing food, others beer, all inquiring about the situation and what I knew. Eventually, I ceased recounting the incident. It was then that Margaret and Henry stepped in. To their credit, they diverted blame from me, praising me for my concern as a spouse. Though everyone harbored suspicions, at least there was an air of support once more. I was merely overwhelmed by one supportive person after another taking a seat to offer their support and worry. I urged everyone to contact the police if they had any ideas that could aid the investigation. I surreptitiously suspected that someone had knowledge they weren't disclosing, praying the truth would surface with the authorities even if I remained uninformed. To all appearances, no one seemed to possess any information, the exception being a few sympathizers contacting the police to inquire about potential leads, but for 2 weeks, nothing transpired. The police had my wife's vehicle's license details, along with its make and model, added to their surveillance list for possible car theft investigations. When I expressed hope like, "I hope they find her car so they can possibly find her," people seemed to regard me puzzled, as if I was missing something. And indeed, I understood their thoughts. She had left willingly, and there was a strong likelihood she wouldn't return home even if found. I attempted to carry on with work, but my efforts were in vain. Everyone urged me to go back home. There, I too became as unproductive. Initially, I stayed put and made phone calls, later drove around searching for her car, even stopped by friends' homes, suspecting they might be concealing her, though I couldn't fathom the reason. Day after day, I fretted, phoned, drove, alerted the police, but gained no progress. In a surge of desperation, I consulted my lawyer to advise me on my course of action, and he referred me to a private investigator. Officially, the police stated it was my right. Unofficially, I sensed their disapproval. I was informed that private investigators often complicate official inquiries. Thus, I inquired about their current findings. They had none. So, I diplomatically but bluntly said that a private investigator wouldn't hinder them from discovering nothing. They resented it, yet couldn't contest it either. The expensive private investigator returned with the same results as the police, namely, zero findings. 2 weeks post Marie's vanishing, I persisted with my routine, making calls, driving aimlessly, and monitoring news updates, while simultaneously scrutinizing her social media, credit card transactions, and joint bank accounts. I found no unusual activity on the card, but 2 weeks later, there were ATM withdrawals in a town 200 miles distant. Instantly, I contacted the police with this information. This piqued their interest, prompting 2 detectives to arrive at my door within 30 minutes, reviving old suspicions. Composing myself and trying to maintain a measured tone, albeit one that now seems a mere prelude to fury, I declared that I hadn't been to that location and hadn't used the car. I remained in the city during this time, engaging with friends, searching for her car, and undertaking far more than any of you have done. Now you have a lead, use it and get moving. They made it clear they didn't care much for me, and after 30 minutes of promises and implied reproaches, they departed. To their merit, they phoned the local police with details about the manhunt for Marie and her vehicle. In 2 days, her car was discovered in a hospital parking area. The regional police contacted me, suggesting I remain still while they take charge. My response: an emphatic no, followed by my departure. A smidgen over 3 hours later, I pulled into this lot. It took merely 2 minutes to spot her vehicle, but those felt like 2 extended hours for me. I also spotted a pair of men in suits inside another car, shouting, "Cops!" So I parked and strolled towards them. Apparently, they had been awaiting my arrival. Upon showing them my driver's license, I demanded they display their badges. They exchanged glances and, with reluctance, complied. I then knelt down and asked them to disclose the information at their disposal. They only realized they had the car, with no one near since arrival. Upon my suggestion to inquire about my spouse, they mentioned they already did. I feigned gratitude and disclosed my intent to investigate regardless. Rapidly escalating anxiety, friendships were not on the agenda here. The hospital receptionist was unaware of my wife's identity and oblivious to the car outside, so I opted to participate in the surveillance. With no secrets to conceal and potential benefits ahead, I asked to sit in their back seat. Surprising a police officer for perhaps the first time since the ordeal, they consented and let me join them. For an hour we conversed, during which I shared minimal information about my situation. When their duty ended and it was time to depart, they permitted me to watch over the car, albeit with one condition clarified: it was off limits to enter. If someone approaches the vehicle, regardless if they're leaving a hospital or arriving at it, refrain from intervention. Instead, contact us immediately to inform us about its movement. Do not attempt to trail it. Your task is solely to call us. Is that clear? I nodded in agreement. Bear in mind, there's a slim possibility they might have your wife and could potentially lead us to her, but the odds are greater that they merely bought the car from another source and hold no relevant information. However, they may unintentionally aid us in locating the seller of the vehicle. It's crucial you remain inactive. Do you comprehend? For the first time since this ordeal began, I truly understood and consented. I then returned to my car, and for the subsequent 3 hours, I remained vigilant, crouched over in the seat, keeping watch over Marie's vehicle. The only instance I deviated from my post was for the quickest relief call in history, when I dashed into and out of the hospital so swiftly that I was still fastening my fly as I traversed the lobby. 1 hour passes, and I spot a woman approaching the vehicle. My heart momentarily halts. I struggle to breathe. It's Marie. She retrieves a small object from the car, closes the door, and returns to the hospital. I trail her discreetly. A gut feeling told me she wouldn't acknowledge my presence if she knew I was here. As we entered the hospital, I kept approximately 20 meters distance. I observed as she boarded the elevator, and it halted on the 3rd floor. Shortly after, I peered into the room and saw her seated by a man's bedside. The man appeared to be in a state of unconsciousness or sleep, and Marie was holding his hand. I cleared my throat, and upon seeing me, she collapsed. I grew furious and perplexed, summoning a nurse who attended to her until she revived. The majority of this time I spent scrutinizing the man in the bed. I had never encountered him before. He was neither friend nor kin, merely a stranger. It became evident that the man mattered more to Marie than her marriage, her family, and even me. Resolving one puzzle, another cropped up instead. As the nurse assisted Marie off the floor, I decided to inform the local police about my wife's discovery. They advised us to stay put while they arrived, and I provided them with our room number. Life was becoming increasingly intriguing, and as I gazed at the man in bed, a shiver of dread replaced the fear within me. Regaining composure, Marie verged on hysteria, only shaking her head when I posed questions calmly. Why, Marie, who was that man? Why did you flee like that? Why didn't you inform us where you were? Why didn't you let us know you were safe? Marie, what's happening for heaven's sake? She seemed on the verge of responding a few times, but then she dropped her head and cried again. I stayed there, anticipating the detective's arrival, querying silently about their timeline. I allowed them control, stepping back, yet they prompted me to go outside immediately. One of them accompanied me and barraged me with a dozen inquiries. I merely divulged the facts, observing Marie near the car, trailing her, and subsequently engaging her at the ward. Admittedly, my choice of words might not have been ideal, and for the following 5 minutes, I reassured him that I hadn't harmed Marie. Upon learning about the nurse discovering Marie on the floor, his questioning grew more urgent. Meanwhile, his partner was conversing with Marie. Eventually, I believe I managed to persuade them that I hadn't injured my wife. Perhaps it was Marie who convinced them instead. Their insistence on my departure led me to call the ward. Marie, if I depart from here, I will initiate divorce proceedings. Do you comprehend me? This triggered another fit of hysteria, and she pleaded with me not to leave. I met the detective's gaze firmly and expressed, "I won't leave until I receive some clarification." Afterward, I was granted re-entry into the room. As softly and composedly as possible, I started to question Marie about the matters troubling my mind. Marie responded cryptically with fragmented answers. He is her former high school boyfriend, was her first love. He is terminally ill and has no one. There were vast stretches of undisclosed facts hidden amidst those words, yet I was left to inquire or conjecture. How did you spend 2 weeks here without using your credit card? She remained silent for quite some time before eventually disclosing the truth. I stayed at his house. So, do you know where he resides? Of course, I am aware. And you possess a key, she acknowledged silently. For how long have you had a key to his house? She evaded my question with a silent shrug and focused on the floor instead. I knew that as soon as I leveled the accusation, there would be consequences if I proved incorrect. Nonetheless, 2 weeks is too long for someone to remain in the dark, awaiting answers. Marie, how long has this been happening? She remained silent. I asked again about the length of the affair, yet she neither answered nor denied it. In such moments, silence reigns in one's mind. Later, there will be more questions and more pain. At least let me see his house. Accompany me to where you stay. Her eyes widened in terror as fear took hold. Eventually, she reluctantly nodded. She fetched her coat, and we made our way to my car. "I'll drive you," I said, "and then I'll bring you back." She seemed startled but consented. It seems the detectives have decided this matter is private. With a parting warning against reckless actions, they left us. For the most part, Marie was silent during our journey, only providing directions when necessary. At one point, barely audible, she murmured, "I was told we might need to compensate the police for wasted time." I wanted to inquire about the "we" she mentioned, but held my tongue. My heart raced, and I felt unsteady as I walked. Upon pulling into the driveway of our townhouse, I suspected this dwelling would provide answers to my queries. Marie guided us inside, and in the living room, I spotted her shoes on the floor beside the couch and her scarf on a chair. Progressing down the hallway, Marie called out, "James, please don't enter that room." However, if any of my wife's words could exert an opposite effect, this was the moment. Crossing the threshold into the master bedroom, I found discarded clothes strewn across the messy bed and chair, cosmetics, and other items on the dresser. My remaining doubts vanished when I opened the closet and saw the familiar dresses. There, among them, hung a blue dress that was her favorite, but I knew it wasn't there. It had to be a duplicate. Multiple pairs of shoes, fitting her size and preferred style, were found in the room items she hadn't packed for the trip but kept here instead. It was now certain that if I opened some drawers, I would uncover more personal belongings like undergarments. The room appeared arranged not for everyday living, but for occasional sleepovers, dining, dancing, and subsequently intimacy and sleep with a partner. Feeling defeated, I re-entered the living room to find Marie seated on the chair's edge, gazing vacantly at the floor. "Was there something you wanted to disclose?" She merely shook her head slowly. "How much time has elapsed, Marie?" The relationship was clearly not platonic. "How long has it been?" She remained silent for a while before responding softly. "I was with him first. We were together during our high school years." "Have you been secretly seeing him for 6 years?" This seemed to surprise her, yet she couldn't refute it. "You both were aware of it. We reconciled 7 years back. Initially, it was just shared meals, then dinners. One time when you were away, we attended a dance together. It took a year before. She hesitated, before we slept together. "Yes," she acknowledged. "So you've been having an affair with him for 6 years behind my back. How did that happen? Did he visit our house, or did you go to his place?" This prompted Marie to react swiftly, lifting her head. "I never invited him to our home, I swear. I wouldn't do that to you." This left me feeling enraged. "It appears you can be intimate with him, but not welcome him into our home. At least there's some boundary you've set." She grew upset, but couldn't dispute it. Following a prolonged quietness, she murmured, "I never ceased cherishing you. He assuredly didn't deprive you, that I vow. It was merely a handful of nights annually, and I remained with you perpetually. It was an untruth borrowed from a deceitful playbook, and I contemplated, what is the purpose of debating? Yet, there was a reason. It eroded at least a portion of the affection you claimed for me. You preserved a fragment of your heart for him. You frequently deceived me, made promises to me, yet bestowed upon him a piece of yourself that you asserted was solely mine. Don't tell me he didn't take anything from you. He stole everything, even if it doesn't cross your mind. Marie wept, and I remained by her side in silence. I comprehended all I needed to grasp, considered wreaking havoc on his residence, destroying whatever I could reach, but he wouldn't return here. Ultimately, I surrendered. All right, Marie, let me escort you back to your lover's bedside. This provoked a fresh outburst of tears, but my heart was shattered, and I had no solace to offer her. Drove her to the hospital, then she pleaded with me, James, asking for some time. He has no one. I can't let him die alone. She promised return soon. Her last words brought a short sob. Upon return, we could resume our shared life. Please, she implored, loving you and swearing it. Remained silent, letting her go, assured she knew our relationship had ended. Drove home at a snail's pace for 4 hours, yet recall nothing of the journey. Overwhelmed by despair. 2 weeks of tension and anxiety, everyone urging me not to lose hope. Learned later that she was with her lover all along. Exhausted, both physically and emotionally. Managed only to stumble into the house and collapse in my preferred chair. Unsure how long I sat before the first phone call arrived. Her parents queried where I had been and if I'd learned anything. 200 miles passed in silence, revealing the depth of my estrangement from Marie. Initially, I contemplated shielding her from humiliation, but my affection for the woman who deceived me throughout our relationship had dwindled to nothing. Consequently, I disclosed our ordeal to Henry and Margaret. Their skepticism subsided when I detailed the evidence in his house. Irrespective of their belief, it no longer mattered. Our marriage was irreversibly damaged. The end of my union with Marie became crystal clear, an undeniable truth that shattered my heart. She had found solace in another man while I remained unyielding to sharing her affections. Worse still, she had deceived me for years, hiding her infidelity and betrayal behind a mask of loyalty. This wasn't a mistake. This was a life built on deceit, a path we could not retrace. I shared the news with Marie's confidants, maintaining composure as much as possible, but I refused to fabricate falsehoods for her sake. Following their use for practice, I contacted our children to share difficult news. I had located their mother, and she was with her partner, gravely ill in a hospital bed. Unwilling to accept the truth, they demanded proof, so I described the townhouse. When asked if I could forgive her, I responded vaguely about the possibility of forgiveness at some point, but emphasized that trust would never be restored. I offered an apology and informed them of my intention to divorce their mother. Forgetting they had no means of contacting her, I implored them not to reveal this information to her. I explained that she required every moment with him, and a hasty return home wouldn't alter anything. Despite their opposition, they eventually comprehended. 2 weeks later, he passed away and Marie returned, only to find an empty house I had already moved out. A week after her return, divorce papers were served to her. I did not abandon the town, leave my job, or conceal myself. Instead, I simply changed apartments until I discovered a new residence that appealed to me. 6 years ago, the old house was near enough for the children to visit us both. Marie attempted to persuade me otherwise, but ultimately failed. She would visit my office or dwelling, pleading with me to alter my decision, yet I had already resolved it. Her tears and threats were in vain. The union lasted 6 years, marred by deceit. If one includes meals, social gatherings, and dances, it was a 7-year affair. It was the deceit, at least as much as the infidelity, that destroyed our marriage. Upon discovering her skillful and effortless ability to deceive me, right to my face with a smile, I understood she did not view me with the same ardor I held for her. It's been 2 years since the divorce was finalized. I don't inquire, but the children report their mother only goes to work and then home. They believe she leads an uneventful life. The knowledge that she endures such pain saddens me. but I am unable to aid her. To this day, I cannot discern if she is mourning the loss of her first love or the betrayal of her marriage vows. I too struggle to move forward. The discomfort subsides, albeit not fully gone. Romantic engagements are absent in my life, but I find myself observing other females, anticipating a future dive into dating. Trusting another woman beyond a professional context is a distant prospect. I'll never comprehend her infidelity, recognize her deficiencies, determine what I failed to provide, or fathom her rationale. Inquiring might be plausible, yet the purpose seems elusive. Her action was hers, and she apparently found peace with it. To the outside world, the incident remains unspoken because I question whether they would trust my account even now, but the man's identity in that townhouse where my wife feigned family is all I need to know. Revenge against the deceased is impossible, and I recognized I couldn't pardon the woman who betrayed me.